hydration station number 2, take 2. Take 1 was scrapped because my alarm for laundry went off. So I hastened down the stairs very quickly to switch the laundry, and it was still going. So we're just going to do this recording, leave the timer out of it. I hope you brought your hydration. We call this hydration station because it used to be called tea time. You can tell. I just hit a bunch of stairs. And so this used to be called tea time. This is sort of the spiritual successor to tea time. And I haven't had very much caffeine. I won't say no caffeine, but I haven't had very much caffeine since about halfway through April. I started getting a little bit more on the path and a little bit more disciplined in my day-to-day activities, and it feels very good. Feels very good to do. Try it out. Feels very good. So I guess I want to start by saying that I love you guys. Holy crap. I wasn't expecting this much response and effort into the comments that went through, and we're going to go through some of these comments, and we're going to think about the ideas that are posed in the comments, and we'll do some little bit of clarification as far as what my perspective is and where these ideas are kind of differing. So, but I don't want anybody to think of this as like a debate or an attack, you know. Yeah. There's gonna be a lot of heavy breathing in this one. I hope you don't mind. Maybe I should restart. Take 3. Too much heavy breathing in take 2. And maybe we just move the mic a little bit. Okay. All right. In any case, so let's see. Let's just go ahead and get to the comments. I think that's all the basic ground rules stuff. I was just super excited about how everyone's taking a lot of effort to make their points in their comments, make them clear, and some people sharing some videos and ideas as well. So it's pretty neat. We're just gonna sort top comments, and one last thing before we get started. I don't really have time to sit down and prep and put together this like perfect little thing where it's like, okay, I read through all the comments. These are the bullet points where I want to talk about, you know. It'd be very nice to do that. But we're just going to keep this, and this is one of the things that I've been trying to do. We're just going to keep this chill. We're going to keep this relaxed. This is only episode 2, okay? So really want to focus on getting the consistency down and not upping the intensity too quickly. Short story, I haven't been able to really run without significant knee pain for 6 or 7 years. It was around the time when I was in California the first time making content in the very beginning. So I think like 2013, and yeah, 6 years is 2019, isn't it though? So haven't been able to run because I ran a lot, didn't stretch, and when I ran in high school, I ran incorrectly. So I was striking with my heel on the ground. That sends vibrations up to your knee and causes unnecessary damage. If you strike with the pad of your foot, then what happens is the load of your weight is taken by your calf muscle primarily, and then like the bigger muscles at the top as well kind of kick in. And so if you're running and your heels are touching the ground, you're probably doing it wrong. You're probably doing a little bit of extra damage to the knee that you can avoid by learning how to run differently. So I'm not an official. I'm not a physician. Okay, I'm not a doctor. This doesn't constitute doctor's advice. It's my own experience. It's what I've experienced and what I've read. So keep that in mind. That should be true for everything. But whenever medical stuff or legal stuff comes up, I find that people tend to put these little disclaimers here, and so I think it's probably a safe practice to do. You know, just Just take it with a grain of salt. Doubt me. Doubt me. Doubt everything. Doubt me. Okay? Very important. I'm going to be wrong about a lot of shit on this show because I'm a human being. Okay? A human fucking being. I'm also going to swear. Happened. Happened. Doesn't mean it's a bad thing. All right. Okay. I think we're ready. I think we're ready to begin. So I'm just reading these comments for the second time. I read them all as they come in. I read the comments as they come in. So I'll be reading these for the second time. And kind of we'll stop and do some analysis as we go along. So Half a Ninja says, I'd like to start us off with a statement that I pretty much agree with you on most points. There are some things that could be misinterpreted. Let's take the argument about not putting people into groups. So we're going to stop there. So, and I should have been more clear about this. Treating people as individuals in the way that I'm conceiving it is not necessarily just being like, oh, I don't see color, I don't see groups, I don't see them. They're just not real. Okay, you know, that's not what we're going for. It's more in your day-to-day life, which is most of your life. I would assume your life is made up of days and they go day to day. You're going to run into people and you're going to meet people and talk to people. And the idea is that as an individual, not as a politician creating policies, as an individual existing in the world, you should ask people their name and you should see people's actions and what they do. Somewhat what they say, but I think what people do is really a better indicator. And then adjust the definition of that name for you, attach that particular person based on the actions that you know that they've taken and how they treat you and how they treat others, what they do when they have power over others, you know, things like that. And so, excuse me. I should probably mute for that in the future. I'll try to be less gross in the future, but I'm a human. We're all pretty gross. But yeah, so I don't think I was specific enough in that. I don't think this idea is just like, I don't see groups, they don't exist, is kind of like, no, of course people exist. There are populations. You can categorize people into populations based on attributes, right? A lot of the hot topic stuff that I was really referencing last video was, you know, things like race and gender and sexual preference, orientation, etc. Whichever word that you think is politically correct enough not to get offended about, but who you like to have sex with and who you like to flirt with and who you like to be sexual with, okay? Whatever word you want to use for that. Who you're attracted to. So there are groups, okay? There are groups. And an attribute will change the way that you experience life, right? Like, if you're attractive, you will have a very, very different life experience than someone who is ugly. And there's going to be people like, everyone's beautiful. No. Sorry. No. It's not the case. It's not the case. Biology is involved. Okay? If you're physically fit, you're generally going to be more attractive in the sense of how it's going to affect your day-to-day life and how people are going to treat you and the opportunities that you have than if you're not physically fit. That's biology, right? Okay? Females are looking for mates, right? In the past. I understand people have different ideas. See all these caveats? See how like annoying this is to try to like make a point and have to make all these caveats? I need to stop doing that actually. Perhaps. So in the traditional biological sense, the woman is trying to select a man that's going to stick around because we create offspring that is incredibly vulnerable. And if women are choosy with the men that they pick, then it's more likely that the offspring are going to survive because there will be 2 adult humans around to protect the very vulnerable baby human. Okay? And so that's biology. That's the way it is. And if the man is physically fit, then okay. Then even more likelihood that the child is going to survive. And the other way, as a man looking for a woman to create a small human with, a baby, if the woman is more physically fit, it's more likely that she's not going to die in childbirth. You know, if a woman has wider hips, it's less likely that she's going to die in childbirth. So generally speaking, men tend to be attracted to those types of things. Women tend to be attracted to those types of things. It's okay. It's biology. Okay? It's evolution. That's how we got to where we are. Right? And so if you're attractive in the limbic system biological sense, you're going to have a very different experience in your life. That attribute is going to change the opportunities that you have in your life and how people treat you. That's true. But when I'm talking about treating people as individuals, this is about you and one other person that you meet in your life, and you interact with them and you build up a profile of how they act, what they do, if they're true to their word, if they're trustworthy, things like that. And then that's great. You know, that's wonderful. That's great. So we made it through one small sentence. Let's continue on. Yes. So I'm going to actually reread that because it's been too long. Let's take the argument about not putting people into groups. Yes, this is half a ninja. Yes, on a very individual and personal level, that is nice and could be really useful. But the thing is that no matter if we like it or not, the world simply can't function like that. Sometimes you just need to put people into groups, both on a personal level, because it can sometimes help you understand them as a member of that group better, and also because not everything we do is on a personal level. Sometimes you will need to terminate a number of people. Oof, Terminator. So you have them on a, just jokes. I actually, as a side note, just see, I kind of know Half a Ninja. Half a Ninja has been in the stream a lot, and we've been in voice chat playing Vanguard together a lot, and so just, I'm not attacking him. It's fine. It's okay. Man, I need to stop making these caveats. It's difficult. It's difficult. Sometimes it can help you understand them as a member of that group better, and also because not everything we do is on a personal level. Sometimes you need to terminate a number of people, so you have to group them according to their value to the company or the community or whatever. Yeah, for sure. So I think competence is a really good way to categorize people if you are a company and you are trying to figure out, okay, the numbers aren't lining up, we aren't profitable, we tried all these different ways, we have to fire some people, let some people go, move some people in a different direction, whatever euphemism you'd like to use. We have to fire some people. And maybe competence. I think competence would be great for that. What I think would be awful is if the company is saying, all right, well, we have to meet this diversity quota, and so we'd like to fire these incompetent people, but we can't. Or sometimes it works out. So like, we'd like to fire these incompetent people, and they're all people that can't play any sort of oppression card against us and file any sort of suit against us in that case, so we're safe there. And this is a real thing. Companies have to, and I've seen it happen. Companies have to act differently in this realm of political correctness. And instead of filtering for competence, which is what's going to make the company better, it's what's going to reinforce behavior and values that are going to make your company more successful because people are good at their jobs. I don't care if you're black or if you're trans or if you're gay or if you're a straight white male. If you do your job well, that should be, right? That should be job security. You know, you shouldn't get job security because of the color of your skin. And you shouldn't get job insecurity because of the color of your skin either. It should be about competence. That's my opinion. In any case, company, community, whatever. In a very practical sense, you can't not put people into groups, because anything else is nothing short of a logistical nightmare. Or you're just ignoring the fact that someone has a given background and that has put him into a given group, and respecting that and knowing that will help you understand and relate to them better. So I think that that's useful too, right? I think that stuff is quite useful too, right? If you see there are some things that you can see, attributes on a person, and you can infer some things about their life, but you shouldn't assume it. The much better route is just withhold judgment. You don't have to make judgment based on, oh, I see someone, I'm going to make some judgments now. You don't have to do it. You just withhold the judgment. You can have conversations with a person. I know, it's crazy. You have conversations and get to know that person and their life. One of the things that I learned out on tour, and this wasn't a fancy rock star tour. This is 5 dudes in a van that's disgusting, and we're barely making it from place to place, and we're breaking down, and we're calling in favors, and it was grungy and it was tricky, right? I wouldn't say it was really difficult, because I think I'll reserve that for people in war zones and serious, people hanging out in Juarez trying to survive day to day. But one of the things that I learned is that there's a shit ton of poor white people too. Yeah. A bunch of them voted for Donald Trump because they were being ignored. Yeah, losing their jobs out in the Midwest. So it's like, you don't want to look at someone and be like, wow, this person is really put together. They're dressed in a suit and a tie, and they've got, they've combed their hair well, and they look very, very good, very clean, very crisp. You don't want to immediately assume it's like, oh, they must be well off. It's like, not necessarily. A lot of times what someone who's not well off can do is invest in some of those appearance things to try to get an edge, try to push into the next economic level. And so you don't know that. Have conversations with people, talk to people, get to know them. You don't have to jump to a conclusion. You don't have to make a judgment. Be like, oh, yep, that person. Oh, well, they're a person of color, therefore they must have grown up poor. It's like, not necessarily. Not necessarily. And there are lots of things that necessarily occur and don't. I know my examples aren't perfect, but I hope you can forgive my imperfections, because they're going to be here whether you like it or not. Okay. Now, about political correctness, completely agree. Stop judging people on 5-year-old racist tweets, for sure. We should be more lenient with all the butthurtness out there. Okay? I myself hate PC culture more than anything in the modern world. Wow. Strong statements from Half a Ninja. He's a strong dude. It is an old system designed to protect minorities from prejudicial mindset that people harbored in the past. I think that's a slight misstep. I think that there are lots of people with prejudicial mindsets all around us all the time right now. I think that's standard. I think making judgments instead of withholding judgments is the norm. I think most people just tend to do that. And it takes some effort to withhold judgment and wait until you get more information. I think that's very prevalent. So I'm going to disagree with that part of the comment just a bit. Today it's been bastardized to be a tool for left-wing extremists, which I consider terrorists, but who asks me? Oh, Half a Ninja. All right, love you, buddy. To take down people they don't agree with politically, not give them a chance to speak because they don't comply with their agenda of a self-sterilizing global community. It should be abolished, and that is that. So I think this sort of absolutism, I'm not really sure how literal to take Half a Ninja, or if they're just sort of being sort of flowery with the language, or aggressive with the language a little bit. So we're gonna do something that I like to do called giving someone the benefit of the doubt. We're gonna move on. not to mention all the absolute atrocities PCO culture has given birth to. For example, we have Sweden, which has become a hellhole in my eye. My God, the whole country? Calm down, bud. There are some kindergartners that officially taken up policy which tries to abolish gender standards, which represent them only allowing boys to partake in traditionally girly behavior, such as imaginary tea parties, playing with dolls, vice versa for girls, who are encouraged to be more aggressive and play more roughly and be more manly, to show how gender is only a social construct. It's when you get into kids, right? When you get into talking about raising children, that's hard, man. We don't fucking know how to do that. We don't know how to raise children. We're trying stuff out, right? It's science, okay? We're making experiments. We're trying stuff out. With my generation, we tried something out called the Dr. Feelgood Self-Esteem Participation Trophy Movement. It didn't work out for us. It didn't work out for us. People from my generation, the millennial generation, at least in the US and probably in most developed nations that had this psychology, that followed this psychology of just good job. Oh, you're great. You're wonderful. You're great. You're the best. Oh, yeah, you're awesome. Self-esteem. It turned the majority of us into just people that don't have too much drive or ambition and aren't really interested in taking responsibility for things. And some of us have managed to distance ourselves from that and push away from it. But as a population, the millennials tend to be entitled, and we lack grit, stick-to-itiveness, right? Resilience. These are very buzzy words right now that people are talking about in reference to millennials. And I think it's true. I think that when you do that, when you run that experiment, you get this batch of humans that run into a problem and they're like, I'll just do something else. You know, it's like they don't see it as a challenge to overcome. It's hard for us to sort of push past those type of things because we're so used to everyone giving us like all this praise for basically doing stuff that's easy. And anyway, so that's one experiment, right? We tried it out, didn't work out. You know, I think there's a lot to be experimented with in the area of gender. As far as I don't think there are such things as boy colors and girl colors, for example. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's some biological basis for that, and that'll get discovered, and I'll change my opinion then. But for the time being, I think that the idea that we should color all female things in a certain way and color all male things in a certain way seems silly to me. And there's a lot of breaking out of that's going on, and I think that's great. I think we should. There's a spectrum of color, guys. It's frequencies of light. That's it. That's all that's going on. Calm down. It's all right. You know, I think there's a lot of things to play around with there, and my idea with experimentation is like maybe don't go so crazy in the experimentation. Try a little bit and see what happens as a result, and then make a small iterative change and things like that. So yeah, but I think there's a lot of traditionally feminine traits that are beneficial for men to adopt, and I think there's a lot of masculine traits that are beneficial for women to adopt. And I think that, you know, children should be put into such a environment where they can express their individual tendencies without, you know, fear of reprisal of being like, oh, you wore a pink shirt to school. What are you, gay? Right? When I was growing up, that was the norm. And now I think it's much better in that case. So I think that in that sense we've made some progress. I think it's good, right? But the idea that it should be reversed and all the boys should only be allowed to participate in traditionally feminine things and all the girls should only be able to participate in traditionally masculine things, my intuition there is maybe that's a bit too far. Maybe everyone's a mix, you know, of a little bit of each, and there's some stuff that we like that's feminine and stuff that we like that's masculine, and we should explore it all and enjoy what we enjoy, you know? that's my take on it anyway. A great and intelligently put explanation of this can be seen in this video at 13 minutes. Thank you. I love people sharing sources where they get their ideas. I try to do that. I'm a little bit lazy as far as this particular program goes, in that this isn't my priority. This show, this hydration station, isn't my priority. I have a lot of other things that are way more important to me. Sorry, guys. And then it's the show, and it's my health, my family, and my job. You know, like those are the things I'm focused on in my life, and this is kind of falls after that stuff. So, that is sort of what it is. Personally, back to Half a Ninja, I was infuriated that people would brainwash kids like that. Was happy to learn that as soon as their contrived rules were abolished, the kids reverted back to normal behavior. And I think kind of, again, this is where I sort of disagree, where it's like, I don't agree with this sort of like men only doing masculine things, women doing only feminine things. I think there are some boys that are just really, really masculine, and they're just only going to be attracted to masculine things. That's fine. And there are some women that are only attracted to really feminine things. That's fine too, right? Like that's okay. But the idea is that wherever you end up in these set of behaviors that are either feminine or masculine, like, you should be okay with that. And people around you should be okay with that. It's like, that's where it is. People should really just stop listening. Back to Half a Ninja. People really should just stop listening to every person who has a PhD in women's studies or whatever. I honestly have no respect or interest in the field, so I don't even know how it functions. So I just assume it has PhDs. I actually don't know. I don't know the answer to that one. I don't know if they have PhDs or not. I assume they do. I think it's probably safe to assume. Take their word as gospel because you point out the field is not a science in any way. Yeah, unfortunately, there are lots of fields of study that are not sciences. That's okay. That's okay. They can work their way up to sciences eventually. But I think the idea of representing yourself as a science and not following the scientific method is sort of problematic. And that's a word that, again, that's a word that has a very specific meaning now, but I'm going to use it in the traditional, literal definition of the word in the dictionary meaning. It's a problem. And that point about the name is pretty fucking good. NGL. Don't know what that means. Feel free to respond in the comments. Let me know what that means. Thank you for educating me. Yes, respecting people and their merits and intentions is very, very important. Agreed. Should be done so much more these days. I just see so many left-wing extremists taking down reputable and respectable individuals just because they forgot to finish the sentence. And yeah, I remember you being that guy back when I was lurking around. Glad to see you've made the shift. Yeah, I definitely. We got some stories. We got some authoritarian JaKaTaK stories to tell. I won't go into them now, but we got some. I pissed off and hurt a lot of people with my authoritarian censorship tendencies that I had and that were, in my opinion, very incorrect. In conclusion, I'm a white male, so according to the newest BuzzFeed article, I say this about 3 times, Hail Hitler or whatever. So you know I'm a racist because my skin's the way. Why listen to me? Oh, man. Oh, man. Half a Ninja likes to make the memes, right? That's okay, all right? It's okay. It's all right. So Dark says, if you're worried about what you say, just do like PewDiePie. Do it in a way that people don't take seriously, but people who know you actually know what you mean. And I responded to him. I'm not going to read it exactly, but basically for me, this is about, I'm just a straightforward guy. And that runs me into some trouble. Sometimes, a lot of times actually, I'm too straightforward. I need to pull it back, you know, a little bit. But as far as, this is probably me in my most straightforward, honest state. Because I'm talking to a camera. That camera is recording a video, and you are all going to watch it later. And so I'm not having a conversation with an individual. When I'm having a conversation with an individual, like, I'll know, okay, this person doesn't really respond well to the direct approach of talking about a particular thing, or, you know, they're really sort of entrenched in a particular position. And so I'm not really going to mention that or talk about that because I know that they're not open to other ideas and things like that. So when I'm making this video, I'm just saying, I'm just going to assume that you're open to all ideas about all things, because there's probably one of you that's going to watch this video that is open to each idea that gets presented. And that's good enough for me. Aaliyah asks about Immortal. If you all don't know, sunspeargames.com. sunspeargames.com. Go check it out. That's the game company that I am a part of. We are currently in the very beginning stages of developing a real-time strategy game. Working on getting funding and developing the engine. We recently, for example, went through the really fun exercise of considering pathing in RTS and how we're going to do our pathing, what kind of commands, like hold position, things like that. I know a bunch of you StarCraft nerds, so I'm just, you know, going off a little tangent. We're going into that type of stuff. So that, you know, that's an example of kind of where we're at the moment. And maybe I shouldn't even have said that, but I think, just don't tell anyone. It's going well. It's going well. It's fun. Oh, and this guy, Toxic Rain. I love that ID. Immediately, I was just like, that fits perfectly in the Chocolate Rain song. Just want to say I've been following for a really long time. Your rants, your StarCraft videos always made me think. Thank you. I think I mostly agree with you. Yes, I think platforms like YouTube and Facebook have too much social power over us. I also think that the best option is to have decentralized platforms. Toxic Rain, if you want to expand upon that, if you're listening right now, you want to expand upon decentralized platforms and what that would look like, that's a very interesting idea to me. I like the concept, but I'm having trouble envisioning it in a practical way, probably because I haven't spent enough time thinking about it. But if you have ideas, please share them. I think it's very interesting. I agree with you. Yes, we should be able to express opinions and be able to receive critique without getting canceled or deplatformed. Yeah, I think that's important. I think that that's how the experiment of the Earth runs, of humankind runs. It runs well. If we're always experimenting and trying things and being okay with failing, and looking at the results in an unbiased, you know, dispassionate, calm way. I don't believe I've ever seen someone discredited solely because they were a cis, straight, white male. So I want to make a clarification. I'm not saying that people are discredited because they're a cis, straight, white male. In a regular basis, if you have some time and you're interested, go check out Eric Weinstein and Evergreen College. Just type in those two phrases and start watching some videos. And it's crazy. It's crazy stuff. There was like a hostile takeover of a college, like a physical takeover. They were barring doors with tables and things like that. They were locking people into a room until they sort of submitted to the ideas of this group. And they were saying that the food and the water and the chairs are not for white people. And so while that's a very extreme example, I don't think this is something that happens in day-to-day life very much. But I think that if we allow the ideas and the conversations and events like that to sort of go unnoticed and to sort of say, oh yeah, that's an anomaly, it won't happen again, it's fine, then I think that we'll be in for a very divisive and non-productive society. You know, we're all going to be divided against each other and fighting up against each other. And I just don't think that's the way that we get to a better world for everyone. That's kind of a big statement, but that's how I feel about it. The point people are making when they talk about privilege like that is that you have privileges that other people don't have. Agreed. Yep. It's not saying that you are somehow lesser, not to be trusted because of circumstances of your birth. Systematic things like that are more likely to be shot by the police, even dark skin. Or take me an example. I am a transgender woman. And the fact that I have not used a public bathroom in 2 years because I'm afraid that someone might think I'm there to do something crazy when I just want to pee and get out of there. I don't see you as the enemy, Tom. I see you as a potential ally. Thank you. I'm glad that you haven't jumped on the current bandwagon of allyship is problematic. In the more progressive or extreme areas of this this activism, they're beginning to deconstruct allyship. And the primary issue with allyship as it's sort of conceptualized in the way that I've seen it is that, generally speaking, an ally is someone who's on equal terms, right? Like if you ally in a war or you're playing a 2v2 game, right? You're on equal terms. I don't think allyship in the context of this sort of political correctness, identity politics, you know, whatever you want to call it, this movement of idea, it tends to be that the allies are put on a lower level than the people that are able to identify with historical oppression, right? So thank you very much for not falling into that. I think that's a much worse direction to go, for sure. As allyship is problematic. Don't like that. Lastly, I feel like this is back to Toxic Rain. Toxic Rain! Sorry. Not sorry. Lastly, I feel like people like Jordan Peterson paint groups of people he dislikes in a very negative light. Personally, haven't seen that in what I've listened to and seen, but I'm sure that you've seen it because you're mentioning it. So I'll take you at your word here. I think that it's very important to get information from the source, agreed, which is why I'm very, very compelled by the Brett Weinstein story, because he was there for the entire thing. His physical body was at risk during periods of this experience, right? People were with weapons, with baseball bats, were looking for him and trying to find him. The intent is unknown, but holding weapons and searching for someone is probably not a great intent, I would guess. And he's not a very physically intimidating person, so I don't think you're gonna need weapons if there's 80 of you and one of him. We're not talking about Jocko Willink, okay? He's an intellectual professor guy. I'm sure he works out and he's healthy to some extent, but he's not a scary dude. I'll leave you with this, even though I could say a lot more. I hope it gets you thinking. Maybe we can have a discussion. I hope we do. I hope this is a discussion, Toxic Rain. I think Jordan Peterson gets picked up again on a different comment, but I'm just going to mention this now in case I forget it. I think that there's an issue with saying, okay, Jordan Peterson has faults. Therefore, don't believe stuff that comes from Jordan Peterson. I'm not saying that's what you're saying, but I'm saying that Toxic Rain. But I'm saying that that's a tendency that I've seen among people where it's like, oh, this person, they've been discredited in these ways. Therefore, you shouldn't listen to their ideas. I'm always very hesitant about that idea. For me, it's like, I'm going to listen to all the words, all the ideas. I want them all. Bring them in. Give me all the ideas. And what convinces me is not the fact that it's Jordan Peterson saying it. What convinces me is that there's a certain idea that's expressed, one idea, not all the ideas of the person, because no person is going to have all perfect ideas. One idea that one person expresses makes sense. It's logically consistent, and based on all the things that I'm aware of, it lines up with my vision of reality, right? And we all have inaccurate visions of reality. We do. All of us do. One of the fun puzzles of life is trying to get your map to accurately reflect the territory, right? Your map is your worldview. The territory is reality. what's actually happening, real events, real things that are occurring, right? And so it's sort of one of the fun things of life is trying to get closer to that accuracy of what's actually going on. And so I don't think you should believe anything that I'm saying because I'm saying it. And I don't believe anything that Jordan Peterson says just because Jordan Peterson is the one that's saying it. But a lot of stuff that he says makes sense. A lot of the stuff that he says, especially about personal responsibility, has been extremely helpful for me in getting over my entitled millennial bullshit. And maybe you're a millennial and you have some entitled millennial bullshit that if you worked through it, you would be much happier. Not Toxic Rain, people in general. Make sure I'm not singling you out. Toxic Rain. Toxic Rain. Okay, we're gonna move on. Thank you so much for commenting. Last Penguin says, great vid, Jack. Thanks for the great, love Last Penguin. Great dude. Nicholas H as well. Great to see you again. Great to see you. Nicholas H with the Mickey Mouse. And Michael Connor has left an extreme number of words upon this comment section. And most people, I think, are like, oh, God, they wrote a book. I'm so angry about it. I'm okay with this. I like this stuff, man. I don't get to... Here's the thing. I don't get to talk about this stuff openly and honestly with people in my life, generally speaking, because most people are either uninterested or uncomfortable talking about this stuff. And so I don't get to have these conversations in my real life, which is part of the reason why this whole climate of political correctness is frustrating to me, because it disallows face-to-face conversations that I want to have because people are afraid and uncomfortable. So thank you. I'll try not to waste your time with my words. You try not to waste my time with your words. We'll both do our best to be efficient, but of course no one's perfect. Michael Connor, first comment. I think I'm doing this in the right order. I'm quite sure I am. We need water. Hydration. Hydrate. I just noticed my green screen is freaking out up there. Almost. I was gonna get some more lighting, but this mic stand is ancient. It's like wobbly, crappy old, like punk rock. Been through 80 million shows mic stand. So we're getting a proper streaming one that clips onto the desk. I think it's coming in today. So that'll be good. That'll be nice. Happy Librarian. Oh, wait. Oh, whoa. Michael Connor. Sorry. Back on track. Enjoyed hearing your thoughts. I enjoyed hearing your thoughts, JaKaTaK, and I agree that we should treat people as individuals. I would even extend that to say, I don't know if Michael Connor is Irish, but I mean, Connor, Michael, you're doing pretty good. It's a pretty good start there. I would even extend to say, treat people as individuals that deserve to be a part of your in-group. I love that. Sort of, in-group is kind of a very psychologically loaded word. So if you're not familiar with that idea, it's very basic and it's very self-explanatory. We had tribes back in the day of about 150 people at the biggest part, and those were people in our group, and we protected people in our group, and then we killed the other tribes. And we were very murderous times, you know. Violence is on the decline, contrary to popular belief. Human death is on the decline, contrary to popular belief, around the world. Don't just put yourself in your little U.S. bubble if that's where you are. There are people all over the world having all kinds of different experiences. It's not just about us, U.S., us. All right. I agree. And for me, my in-group is... I try to make my in-group as big as I can. I think I try to include life in my in-group. I try to include consciousness in my in-group, right? Like I wouldn't want to hurt an animal, for instance. And I'm slightly hypocritical there because I participate in the harming of animals by buying meat. But to me, I have a little bit of a hierarchy, sorry. My physical health is more important than a chicken. Sorry. I'm sorry. If we find out If we get some real data on what's going on, we understand consciousness, how it works, and we understand that the consciousness of the chicken is equal to the consciousness of a human being, I'm in. Great. For the time being, I want to eat things that are going to make me stronger. Chicken happens to be one of those things. Sorry. I was vegan for 7 years, so I did some work. I did some work for the cause. But yeah, so I try to make my in-group as big as possible. Definitely. I think that's what will, it's better to bring people in, I think. Bring people together. That's the goal, right? Bring people together, which is why I really don't like this political correctness, because it's in the name of inclusivity, but it's awfully exclusive. I think one positive change in our society would be teaching kids more about how the brain works. Oh, say this all the time. All the time. Oh my God. First of all, unfortunately, we don't really know how the brain works, so there's not too much to teach at the moment. But there are some things that we kind of have an idea about and that we should know, and that's good. You know, for instance, I think we should be teaching kids to meditate. I think everyone should be meditating. It's incredible. It's fantastic. I'm not going to go too hard. I usually oversell things. Meditation has been very helpful for me personally. In getting rid of a lot of my hang-ups, my bullshit that kind of pull me down. I learned from the documentary The Brain with David Eagleman. Thank you for sharing your source. Appreciate that. That caring and empathy are built into our biology. We only show them towards people who we subconsciously consider our in-group. I didn't have to explain it. It's explained in the comment. Thank you. It's such a survival advantage to group up, which is a big part of the reasons why humans have thrived on Earth. Totally agree, but someone's not in your in-group, then the group of neurons fire. We are empathetic, care, and unable won't go off. And when a person... I didn't quite follow that. I'm going to read it again. If someone is not in your in-group, then the group of neurons that fire when we are empathetic / care are unable / won't go off. Okay, I got it. And when a person or a group of people can't experience empathy, then things get very ugly. The ultimate bad thing that happens is obviously genocide. Whew. Got dark. Got dark at the end there, Michael Connor. Sometimes life is dark. That's true. It's true. Don't shy away. Don't try to pretend that the darkness isn't real. Man, okay, so I was in a philosophy class. Philosophy of religion, okay? And when you go, if you go to college, most of the people in college are people who are well off and who haven't experienced any sort of evil, like evil, in their life. A lot of the people in college are there because college is expensive, and if you have more money, that money protects you from seeing, it insulates you, I shouldn't say protects, it insulates you from seeing a lot of the evil things in the world. And he was this person, it was before class, this person in the class was saying like, well, they would make some, I was trying to remember, there was some kind of like really out there esoteric argument that evil doesn't exist. And having just gotten back from tour and seeing, like having my world opened up, being a very protected, insulated human until that point, and then going and, you know, hanging out in fucking Detroit and LA and playing in clubs and, you know, having to keep someone in the van with a knife because we were afraid people would steal our shit. Like those moments. It's like, I don't think, Sir Philosophizer, that you've actually experienced any evil, and that's why you don't think evil exists. So it's out there, guys. It's out there. If you don't think it's there, then you probably haven't been through anything too rough just yet, and that's great. Ideally, everyone has that experience, but unfortunately, the reality, right, the territory, not the map, is that evil is out there, and it gets much worse out there in the in countries outside the U.S. in my my limited knowledge about the dark things of the world. Even though, back to Michael Connor, even though I cannot prove it, I believe the golden rule / karma is real in some form or another. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Careful with that one. As a person who has a tendency to interpret things literally, which is, you know, not most of us. Most of us read through lines and figure that shit out. I'm like borderline autistic or like borderline Asperger's or something like that, according to some of the tests that I've taken. So take that for what you want. I know people like to insult people like for being autistic a lot, which is, I guess it is what it is, right? But I would say I'm a high IQ, low EQ human, right? There's a sort of balance there. I think I made a trade in my stats when I was rolling up my character. I think that's what happened. But in any case, I always thought, and being a very strange person, I always thought, like, treat others as you'd want to be treated. And so I was like, oh, I want everyone to tell me the truth 100% all the time, even if it's mean. I actually want that. That's actually what I want. That's truth. I don't want people to be mean at me in order to get a reaction out of me. Like, ugh. But if people are, if that's truth, you know, if that's what the true experience is, and I did someone to hurt someone, I want to know about it. I do, you know, and I want that real representation. Unfortunately, we get a lot of online trolls who are just there to get a reaction out of you, so it's very hard to parse and stuff like that. So the golden rule of treat others as you want to be treated, I went around telling people exactly how I thought and felt all the time. Don't do it. Don't do it. I hope there are some young people watching right now that are in my sort of literalist tendency. Don't do it. Don't do it. Treat people in the way that you think they want to be treated to some extent, right? It's sort of like people want to be treated in different ways, and being compassionate and kind to people, I don't think it's that hard. I don't know. I don't think it's that. I really don't. I don't think it's that hard. Maybe it's just not hard for me. I got really heavily indoctrinated with be good to everyone, be kind to everyone, be compassionate to everyone and everything all the time as a part of my religious background, which is one of the things that I picked up that was a positive part of my religious experience and still kicks in with me. So that's always been my thing. I would say actually I went too far with it, trying to please everyone, right? Because that's what that turns into. If you push it too far, you try to please everyone, and then you don't have any self-confidence, you don't feel good about yourself, and that's an awful place to be in. So you don't want to be, I think, too far in that direction. You don't want to bend over backwards for everyone. Have a spine, stand up for yourself, even at the cost of physical damage or reputational damage. Stand up for yourself. It's feels much better. It's a much more comfortable way to live, believe it or not. Even though in that moment it may be uncomfortable to stand up for yourself, when you do it on a regular basis, people treat you better, and your life overall is much easier, much more comfortable. Which is like working out. It's painful. It's difficult. Well, I shouldn't say painful. Right? If it's really painful, maybe you're working out too hard, perhaps. But you know, you're doing damage to your body to make yourself stronger, right? So it's kind of like that. So yeah, golden rule and karma. That's my little tirade on that, little ranty rant on that. Be careful about it, but yeah, just be compassionate, be good to others. I'm not saying anything you don't already know. Therefore, the moment I stop giving people the chance to be part of my in-group, back to the in-group idea, then I'll lose my chance at feeling like I belong. Therefore, the moment I stop giving people a chance to be part of my in-group, then I'll lose my chance at feeling like I don't think that's true. Because there are a lot of people that feel they belong and have a small in-group, and they feel they belong into that in-group, and the aggressions and the anger and the violence toward the out-group folks is actually builds up the in-group belonging feeling, which is a part of, you know, that's tribalism, right? That's a part of the problem, is that acting negatively towards people in the outer group makes you feel like you belong even more into the inner group. So I may have misinterpreted, but I happen to disagree with that, because that is all any of us want at the end of the day. Little bit overgeneralization, but benefit of the doubt. I know what you're saying. We all want to belong. That's one of the psychological needs, right? Is more important than food and water, in my opinion. I'm gonna disagree with that a little bit, because we need food and water to survive, and if you're dead, you don't get to belong to anything. So hierarchically, I think that food and water and oxygen come first, but I do think the feeling of belonging is very important for psychological health. You know, wouldn't feel good living if you didn't have a person or a group that you could go to and feel cool in front of. Yeah, like this. I feel cool right now. I've been memeing for an hour. Holy shit. There's a lot of memes. There won't be timestamps. Sorry, guys. Sorry. This is a low priority broadcast. I won't be timestamping. If you would like to be helpful and do timestamps, go ahead and do it. Let me know about it. We can coordinate. That's great. But I'm not going to be doing timestamps because I have other shit to do. Right? This is actually a little bit on the long side as it is, but I'm enjoying the conversation a lot. So thank you. I'm getting a lot out of this personally. So another interesting, useful thing learned about the brain is how our brains form realities. Our brains are in a sense lazy at any given moment. Our brain is using about 5/6 of its power to reach into our memories to tell us what we're seeing. How do you know that? Do we know that, or do we think that that's true and that's a hypothesis? You know, like, is that a theory? I feel like most of the neuroscience and the psychology is not replicatable at the moment and is not really something that we can be super sure about, but maybe it's true, right? I think I'm putting myself in the withholding judgment, maybe it's true area as far as specific fractions of the brain that we either use or don't use. Because it doesn't want to actually have to sit and analyze every little thing it sees. Only about 1/6 of our brain power is used towards deciphering what our eyes see, which means we are all living in our own little realities. I'll agree with that little part, right? We all have different maps. The territory is the same for all of us, but all of our maps are different, right? We should be trying to get our maps close to the territory, close as we can. And then our maps are going to start looking more similar, and then we can coordinate and solve problems together, right? Like the map of climate change. The more that our individual ideas about climate change map closer and closer to reality, everyone comes from their different perspectives towards reality into this space, and then we can solve problems that we have to coordinate on a large scale for. Oh, man. It makes a lot of sense to me because it is obvious how much power our brains have over us. I'm gonna put a little thing in here. It's also true that we have a lot of power over our minds. Maybe not brains, but our minds. You can make a lot of decisions to do things that go past your limbic system. That's where your feelings come in, right? I don't feel like waking up. Well, your prefrontal cortex, which handles your logical stuff, can say, no, this is good for us. This is what we're doing. Feelings, sorry, bud. Sorry, lazy feelings. You don't get a vote. You don't get to decide. We're gonna make this decision with the logical area, and it's gonna run counter to the feelings, and I don't care. I don't care. You have power over your brain too. Just think about when people are scared of germs. They act like things have tons of germs on them when the human eye can't even see germs. And even if it would see germs everywhere anyway. Yeah, germophobia, yeah. Like I came from a very, very clean, neat, organized environment at home. Very, very, both my parents, very, very clean, neat, organized people. And so, going on tour in the filthy, disorganized chaos madness of the van and the venues and the people and the sweat and the stench and oh yeah. And then I didn't get sick. I didn't die. You know, I survived. I made it out. It's like there is something to be said about, you know, like I think this is sort of passed around a lot. I haven't got this from a primary source, so be careful, that kids that grow up with dogs get sick less. And the idea is that because the dogs will like, you know, chew on their toys instead of, because the dog doesn't know what's the difference between a baby toy and a dog toy. They're pretty much the same. They're bright. You hold them and you throw them around. They don't know. Dogs are colorblind. Anyway, but yeah. So let's go ahead and lose my train of thought there. We're going too deep. Germophobia. I love having the text in front of me. So useful. There's something about germs making your immune system stronger. You know, there's something about doing damage to make yourself stronger that I think is true. P.S. Back to Michael Connor. I'm not necessarily confident in my ability to explain and remember things, so urge anyone interested to go watch the documentary yourself. And as a reminder, the documentary is called The Brain with David Eagleman. Cool. Thanks. And this is part 2. I already commented once, said Michael Connor, but I want to comment again because your topics interest me so. I love it. I love the sort of archaic phrasing going on there. It's very pretty, very poetic. When you talk about the feeling of one being worried that if you don't say the perfect thing every time you speak, act perfectly, etc., reminded me of a documentary called Alive Inside, a story of music and memory, which, I mean, I'm a big music guy, so this is interesting already. It was about people showing how successful music therapy is for old people with neurological conditions. Sad part of our culture, but we don't really value the elderly. Yep. Biological bias, right? Biological bias. They're not physically fit. They're not going to protect me against predators. They're not going to keep me alive. Value goes down. But frontal cortex time, logic time, old people have a lot of experience and they've tried a lot of the shit that we're thinking about trying. And it's already been done, and they already know how it goes. They've ran the experiment. They have the results. Get those results. Learn from people who have a lot of experience. I think it's very useful. There's a lot of value there. Here are some quotes from the movie that sums up what I want to relay. We're taught from a very early age that adulthood is the pinnacle of existence, and that old people are really just broken down versions of their former incredible selves. We built a culture that prizes individuals that are able to emulate the success of machines. I like that. We've built a culture that prizes individuals that are able to emulate the success of machines. And maybe this isn't where they were going with this, but what I think of when I read that is my job can very easily, very, very easily be scripted. Like, if I had proper programming software skills, I could write code that would do my job. A lot of the parts of my job, I could just write code that would do that if I was skilled enough, but I'm not. And so, for example, I think a really good example in Amazon, actually, where they, at one point, I don't know if it's still in effect, they had this sort of app that all of the employees working in the factory would be using. I think they're all machines now, or very close to it. We're on our way. They would just have this app, and they would look at it and it would tell them the exact path to take to most efficiently acquire the product and then return it in that exact path. And it's sort of like, yeah, that's a machine, right? That's, you know, machines are straight lines and all that kind of stuff. But yes, I think that's true. Back to Michael. Technology has radically transformed the human environment. Our safety, no longer tied to the home or village, became tied to something else. We became urban, and the traditional family structures began to feel pressure and weaken. As a consequence, by the late 1800s, elders in alarming numbers were ending their days in the poorhouse alongside the insane and the homeless. Even to this day, millions of elderly are ending their days in nursing homes, which is basically a poorhouse and hospital combined. Yeah, man, It is, I totally agree. It's certainly unfortunate. I think there's a lot more value in the elderly than we give credit for. And I think that hopefully we can learn how to be healthier as young people, as growing people, so that we can spend more time in a mentally lucid, physically capable state, and be able to pass on our experience and knowledge down to the next generation. So hopefully that improves in that way. Lastly, thank you, Michael Connor. As we get to the end of the Michael Connor comment, you're now famous to the 100 or so people who follow the show. Or watch the show. Follow the show is probably, that's a bit early, right? It's only the second episode, so if you've watched 2 episodes, if you watch this and you watch the first, you are officially following the show now. Thank you for following. You can also follow me on Twitter at JaKaTaKtv, JaKaTaKtv. Lastly, if you need ideas for videos, think it'd be interesting, I made a video about pragmatism. Very, very pragmatic human. Like to try and be as pragmatic as possible, almost all the time. Efficiency, pragmatism, love it, all about it. Particularly the idea of trying to be pragmatic about tackling a huge problem that seems unsolvable. And aren't those the best problems? Aren't they really? Like, to me, those are the problems that I love, and I've always loved those problems. When I was like in 4th grade, there was one of my teachers was trying to make a point about optical illusions, and they drew an optical illusion on the board, and they said, if any of you in the next week can create a physical object that is this thing that I just drew, I'll give you $100. I was like, whew. I was like, okay, so we got a major incentive, $100, you know, as a 4th grader, that's a lot of money. You know, that is a lot of soda and candy, which is what I would have spent it on. So I was all about that. And so I spent so much time trying to get that done and trying to make it happen, and just like running into like, no, it's not it. No, it's different. And then, you know, I gave it back. And I think like he gave me some sort of consolation thing for putting tons of effort in. Great teacher. Oh, teachers are so important. Having good teachers makes a world of difference in your life. Shout out to all the great teachers out there doing the hard work of being a teacher. So yeah, maybe a future topic, talk about pragmatism a little bit. Perhaps. I'll try to keep that in my brain, and it's gonna hang out in the brain stew. It's gonna marinate in there, and usually when I have an idea marinating in there, eventually I come up with something eventually. Okay. So Zodiath says, "Hey Jack, I was a big fan. You're not anymore. Just kidding. I was a big fan of your StarCraft stuff a few years ago. I like the Tea Time series a lot too. Good. Well, that's what this is. This is tea time without the caffeine. Stay hydrated. I don't make many YouTube comments, but for whatever reason, I'm inclined to do so here. Fair enough. First, I want to comment on something that alarmed me a little. It was that you're seemingly taking up a new narrative that paints white men as victims of some great societal shift. And when you mentioned Jordan Peterson, especially, it was a little sad to hear. Jordan Peterson is rather notorious for deliberately misrepresenting information to push the anti-trans agenda. And while his psychology work is respectable, I'd avoid taking political or societal perspectives from him. So this is the thing that I actually was talking about earlier on. I forgot which comment this was in. I don't assume that because Jordan Peterson says something that it's good. And I don't think it's correct to assume that because Jordan Peterson says something that it's bad, and I shouldn't believe it. I think that it's much more useful if we're all just judging the ideas on their own merits, standing alone. If some random guy in the street that I never met before, who was not famous, And I just started chatting up with him because we were walking the same direction to the same place. And he started telling me all these things. Okay, great, cool, interesting. If the idea holds up, it should hold up by itself, no matter who is saying it. I think avoiding incoming information is a little strong, a mistake. I think hiding, running, and avoiding incoming information is a mistake. You should let all the information come in, allow your ideas to be challenged, listen to the people you disagree with. I recently, specifically and intentionally, started listening to more conservative folks on the political spectrum because my whole life has been liberal folks. My whole input, the brain stew, right? It's just a whole bunch of liberal ideas floating around in there. And it's much better to have conservative and liberal ideas floating around in there so they can do battle in the brain stew. And one will come out victorious, you know, whichever one seems more logically consistent. And yeah, and so I'm with Jordan Peterson on the free speech area, as I think was mostly covered in the last episode. I don't think, like, if I'm going to talk to someone or refer to someone who's trans, I'm going to refer to them by the pronouns that they prefer to be referred to by, as soon as I know it. And if I'm not sure, I'll ask, because I think that's just a basic polite thing to do. But I don't think that it's the government's role to decide what words are okay or not okay. I don't think it's Facebook or Twitter's position to decide what words or ideas are okay and which ones are not. I don't think that we should be afraid of these things on a personal level. I don't think that we should avoid them. I think that we should let in all of the people who hate who you are and see if there's something there and consider them a blank slate. Consider the ideas. See if the ideas stand on their own merits. Maybe you consider switching your opinions about particular things. But it's one thing at a time. It's not this like, it would be really easy if I just had a checklist of everything all these people say is right and everything all these people say is wrong. And so I just listen to these people and then I'll always be right. That's called information siloing, right? That's what the algorithms of Facebook are doing to us. That's causing polarization. It's pushing us apart instead of bringing us together, you know? So yeah. But I do agree. There's a little Zodiac is coming in with something I think is very useful. Is that Jordan Peterson's area of expertise is psychology, and so you should probably weight the things that he says about psychology a little bit more than about other things. That's the way I take it, in a sort of dulled down version of what Zodiac is saying, where just a little bit less extreme. I'm not going to believe or not believe, but a lot of the things he says about psychology are based on tons of reading and research and work and writing that he's done. And so there's probably more there. But again, if the idea can't stand on its own merits, then I'm not interested in it. Nobody would deny that there are some overzealous people belonging to every group. Agreed. Any rational person could dismiss somebody calling them a racist for simply being white. As long as that number of people doesn't get too large. Right? Like, you think about civil rights movement, you put that on the other side. There were way too many people who are racist against black people. And so they couldn't just dismiss, like, oh, we'll just, we'll go ahead and we'll dismiss it. If there's too many people and they're in positions of power influencing the way the culture is and the way that the law is and the way that the society is run, then I don't think it's wise to dismiss them. But as an individual calling me a racist, yeah, sure. I don't give a fuck. You can call me a racist. Hi. You can call me whatever you like. But I think I've said everything I need to say there. I realize that we're an hour and 15 minutes in. May just be how I've interpreted you here. Thanks for being open. I love little statements like that. It really lets you know that the other person is open to the ideas and they're really interested in a conversation. Sounds like you're taking up a strong anti-PC mindset, where PC would ideally serve to amend prejudicial problems from the past. I disagree. I don't think that political correctness is the answer. I don't think it's going to solve the problem. I think it's going to quell discussion, and it will slow us down from getting to solutions, real solutions to real problems that are going on. I don't think that banning certain words or making sure certain words are said instead of others is actually that helpful. I could be wrong, and I think that we're just going to have a disagreement here, but that's sort of my opinion on how I think that experiment will turn out. It's my guess, my hypothesis, if you will. The idea of treating others as individuals and getting rid of categories sounds nice. This is the other part, right? Because someone says a positive thing doesn't mean they're saying that the opposite of that doesn't exist or is untrue, right? Treat people as individuals. Cool. There are also categories of people. Cool. That you can have both. You can, in your day-to-day life, treat people as individuals and recognize that as an extremely obese person, you're going to have a very different experience than someone who's physically fit. Very, very different experience. That's true. You can have both. But there are practical reasons, back to Zodiac, to categorize people. It's important to see the societal effects of different policies, how they act in different groups of people. And also, when the word policy gets thrown out, right, we immediately jump to this political level of like governments and what governments are doing. I want to be really clear. I'm interested in improving as an individual and trying to be better as an individual. I might have ideas about governments and policy and stuff like that, but the causes and effects that go into that are way, way too complex for me to be sure about any of those kinds of ideas. And I'm kind of working on trying to express those things with more humility. So if you ever catch me trying to not expressing a policy level idea with humility, feel free to keep me in check. Be like, hey, you said this earlier, you made a policy level idea here and you expressed it like it was a fact. And I don't think that's a good way to go about things. Well, you don't think it, Jack. You said it, okay? So you know. So yeah, so keep that in mind. I just want to make that little clarification because I think that came up a couple of times. We're going to reread that. It's important to see the societal effects of different policies and how they affect different groups of people because people are products of their environment. Agreed. I understand you personally wanting to be rated on your merits because I've followed your channel for a long time. I know you put a lot of effort into all the work you release. Thank you. I don't think any rational start would try to reduce this down solely to your ethnicity or whatever, because it wouldn't be right to do so. However, I also don't think it's right to say that your position is solely from your own input, because a lot of the opportunities you've had simply aren't available to many disadvantaged people. And the word opportunity is really important. In the discussion around this type of stuff, there are two camps of people. There are people who are trying to optimize opportunities and equalize opportunities so that everyone has a chance, the same chance, as much as possible. That's a fair world, I think. And then there are people who are trying to optimize the outcomes. And I'm in the opportunities camp. And it seems like Zodiac is too. So we have some agreement here. I think that when you optimize for outcomes, you're kind of, it's a little bit arrogant, right? Because you're saying that you know that the perfect balance of physics professors is 50% male, 50% female. It's like, we don't know that. What if for some reason we don't understand there happen to be a lot more people that are interested in physics that are male than female? What if that's true? We don't know. We don't know. Withhold the judgment. Step back a bit. I think that everything is luck, right? Regarding some of the other stuff. Everything is luck. You're born, and that's luck, right? And then every single thing, and people don't like the luck word, so I maybe need to use a different word, but just follow with me on this one. Let the luck word go for a second if you have a negative connotation about it. You're born, and that's luck. And you were born in a place, and that's luck. And you're born with a family, and how they treat you is luck. And it goes on and on and on and on and on. And so I've never been able to come up with something personally myself where I was like, I did this and it was totally me. There were no outside influences, no influences from the past, no influences at all. I made this decision by myself. I don't think that I can't ever, I've done this experiment, this little thought experiment myself many times where I'm just like, all right, well, I just moved this cup. It's like, why'd you move that cup? Well, you were trying to make a point about how you had free will and you could make all these decisions and it's totally you. And it's like, oh, crap. Well, okay, well, I just disproved that. And, I try to catch myself in other situations. But no, I made this decision. It's like, well, no. And it's just going down. And if you go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, eventually everything ends in luck. Everything. And so, and people might think having that mentality is a bad thing. I think it's very good, because if you truly believe at the end of the day that everything comes down to luck, then it's much easier to be compassionate for people in shitty situations, right? People people who are poor, the common term for them for a while was unfortunates, which I think is really accurate. It's just a lot of people are unlucky. They're born into unlucky circumstances, and with an unlucky set of genes, that maybe make them act in a way that doesn't fit into the society that they're in, And so they have all the, there's a chain reaction of things that occurs, and then they're in this awful spot, and they're out on the street holding the cardboard sign asking for money. That could be me. I'm one turn away. All it takes is one little turn in the channel to set off a chain reaction that ends up with me on the sidewalk with a cardboard sign. That's all it takes. There's one turn in the road, and then the chain reaction that results from that. And so I think that when you have this perspective and you're thinking about it this way, a lot of people will say like, oh yeah, well, if it's all luck, then whatever. I'm just getting lucky or not getting lucky. It's like, for me, it's like, it's a little bit more that everything is influenced, I guess. And that if you're taking credit for everything that you do in your place in the world, then you're not being very grateful for the things that have elevated you to where you are. And in my experience, being grateful is the fastest path to happiness. Being grateful is like, this is one thing that I do, and this totally changed my outlook on a lot of things. It's one thing that I do every night before I go to bed, and as I'm falling asleep, I try to think of as many things that I'm grateful for as possible. I just think about them. It's like, man, my family's fucking awesome. Like, we get along. We help each other out. Everyone's got jobs right now. We all have health insurance. We're all relatively healthy. We have leisure time. I get to play games with my brother. And, and once I started doing that, I became much more calm and happy, and sort of very, I don't know, satisfied is not quite right, the word, but I mean, just, I feel gratitude for the place that I'm in, So that's how, there's a little free will diatribe. Is that the right word? Tell me if it's the right word. So respecting the individual is important, continues Zodiac, but respecting the categories that people fall into is a good way of sympathizing with situations that they're coming from. While I wouldn't advocate for strong stereotyping, but it's also important not to dismiss a situation that surrounds everyone that would fall into the same group. People don't all start on the same playing field. Totally agreed. That's right in line with everything is luck. There is no free will mentality that I sort of have. That's not to say that some people don't take it too far. I personally don't think we need 100 different gender tags after all. Yeah, you know, that's the more of those occur, the more maybe, I don't know. I don't have a strong opinion on this one. I have a strong opinion on a lot of this stuff, but I don't have a strong opinion on this one. Like, I think we need a lot more information. But my intuition is kind of similar, where it's like, well, the more pronouns and genders that we add, I think the less likely that map is accurately reflecting the territory of reality, right? I think it becomes less likely. Some people kick up back to Zodiac. I should remember that by now. I scrolled down. Where are we? Some people kick up far too big of a fuss over mislabeling or whatever. Yep. Was definitely talking about that. That's never going to be an actual issue that makes its way into policy. Careful with that N-word. That N-word, that's a dangerous N-word. You think the other N-word's a dangerous N-word. This is a real dangerous N-word. Watch out. Tons of people just got pissed off at me. Do you feel that? You feel that? The wave. The wave. I'm really reckless with this shit. I certainly am. Oh, man. Just have no regard for my physical safety. None. All right. No, I'm fine. I'm not making a big risk. If there were 1 million people watching this video, the risk becomes bigger, but I think I'm fine. Please don't come after me. Come after me with your words. I invite you to come after me with your words, but let's not be violent towards one another. Words are not violence. Putting a strong foot on the ground for that one. Words are not violence. They're words. There's a difference. Never gonna be actually never the N-word. Never. I think that it's good to be aware of possibilities, and it's good to be in a probabilistic mindset where you're considering what's the chance that this happens. It's pretty small. Okay, it's pretty small. More information comes in. What's the chance that this happens? Like, no, more evidence came in. I think the chance is a little bit higher than it was before. More evidence comes in, right? Adjust based on the incoming evidence or information. Despite what JP pushes regarding the broadening of the Civil Rights Act, I haven't read that, so I'm not going to make a comment on it, but he does seem to make the point that it is the new stuff going on in Canada regarding the Civil Rights Act is censorship, is censoring people and punishing people for saying the wrong word, basically. Maybe it's not enforceable or what have you, but I haven't read it, right? So I'm not gonna get too into that. But certainly he seems to think that that's the case. Have you read it, Zodiac? Have you looked into that deeply? Are there any sort of quotes from there that you would take out that would sort of support your point here? I'd like to know. I'd like to know all about sources. But through having categories for people, we can make predictions to try and help disadvantaged groups and creating policies to raise awareness of issues they might otherwise never encounter on a personal level. As example, I never met a trans person. Well, maybe you did meet a trans person, but you didn't know. Or maybe you don't meet a lot of people. I feel like the percentage of trans people among the population is probably big enough where it's likely that you did. That's just my opinion. Maybe it's because I live in a city, and that probably makes a pretty big difference. I live in a city, so I've met all kinds of people, all sorts and shapes and sizes and types. But I respect that the suicide rate among trans people is uncomfortably high. I can imagine so. I can imagine so. I imagine that being a trans person is an incredibly stressful situation. I think very similar to the way that being a gay person is probably still very stressful, but hopefully less stressful now than it was before. I think we have a lot of good progress in that area, which is great, I think. And that awareness of this category will help weigh into my voting choices, right? So now we're really getting into direct political stuff. Also, don't have any black friends. Wow. Where do you live? I guess that's sort of judgmental. I shouldn't have said that. Apologies. I have a very diverse experience. I mean, I've just experienced a big diversity of people. But thanks, Tor. I would thank Tor for that mostly. Travel. If you haven't traveled, travel. It changes your whole. You know what I'm talking about? The map and the territory. Travel. Go to different places. Go to different places. See how other people live. You know, if you're a lower class person, you probably don't have the option to do that, which is terrible. I think that getting people the public transportation and really extensive, big, long transportation across all over the place, you know, interstate, you know, transportation, getting people to be able to very cheaply move around and experience other realities I think is incredibly beneficial. So if you're from a lower class, you don't have a lot of money, you probably don't have a lot of opportunities to do so, but if you happen to get one, jump on it. Traveling will change your whole worldview. It will really help your map more accurately reflect the territory. Back to Zodiac. Encounter personal level. I'll very conscious of people. This is back to Zodiac. I'm very conscious of people that try to play down the effect that racially discriminatory policies have had on black communities. I'll try to support social programs that try to address this, even though it's of no direct impact to me, because I appreciate that it's addressing the needs of a particular group. Totally. I get that perspective. I think though that if you have no experience with black people, you've never had a conversation or a friendship or relationship, then for me, you're coming from a place with no information. And so if I were in that position, I would trying to be, first of all, gathering more information, have more conversations with people, meet more people if you can. Sometimes, like we were talking about before, you can't. But I would be withholding judgment there and saying, hey, let's get some more information, right? How bad is it? And in which areas, right? And in which specific areas? Where are the specific problems? It's hard to solve problems when there's this big, like, racism's everywhere and it's bad. It's like, what are you going to do with that? What are you going to do with that? That's how you're going to solve that problem. But, like, the specific thing of, like, you're more likely to be incarcerated if you're black than if you're white, right? Then it's like, okay, what's going on there? Then you can start getting information. You can start going down that. You can start gathering evidence. What's the cause of that? What things are correlated with that? And what are the causal links between those correlated things? And which correlated things don't have causal links? I'm going to do a really short causation versus correlation. Murders go up in the summer. Ice cream sales go up in the summer. Therefore, ice cream is responsible for murders. That is correlation without causation, right? One doesn't cause the other. They just happen to be correlated in the data. So be careful about that. Be careful about correlation and causation. Try to get accurate information. Try to get the map to reflect the territory. I've said this too many times. We're gonna call this one the map and the territory, I think. I've said it so many times now. Also, what's up, Mongoose? Feel free to send me any sort of background images that you think would be cool to show behind, because people get bored and they want to look at cool shit, and looking at my face for an hour and a half can be that can be tough. If you're still here, I appreciate you sticking around through this. But let's get back on point here. I'll stop. It's more of an essay, but I'd like to hear more about some of the problems that you'd like to solve or just address. And if you think I've misunderstood something you said, please let me know. Great to hear from you again. Great to hear from you. This is so great. So I hope I've responded very well, and you have some back and forth going on now. You have some ideas. Maybe I've misunderstood you in some points, right? And so we can talk about that. But hearing more about the problems you like to solve or just address. This is going to be a little bit of a repeat of the policy level thing, but it's, for me, I think that the way that I'm approaching this stuff is, how do I be the best person that I can be? What does that mean? And how can I act in the world in a way that it will have a positive impact? Like treating people as individuals. Just even if you have some assumptions, just put them aside. Put aside the biases and the assumption the best you can. You can't do them all. Biases are blind spots. You can't see them. It's tough, right? It's like water to a fish. Fish don't know the water's there until they're out of the water, and they're like, what the fuck? I've been swimming in water, right? Biases are tough. We need people. We need friends around us that can point out our blind spots and help us to notice things that we didn't notice before. Again, those things should stand on their own merits. But I guess the primary things, the problems, the big stuff, right, that I think about, which I think where Zodiac is getting at here, the big stuff that I'm thinking about right now is automation. I think that we had a really, really annoying problem where people blamed loss of jobs in the Midwest on immigrants instead of on automation, because automation was the territory, right? And a bunch of people had this map of like, it's the immigrants, they're coming over the border and they're rapists and they're bad hombres, I don't know where that came from, man. Where do people get all these ideas? But automation is radically transforming our economy. The economic principles that used to predict things accurately are more and more not predicting things accurately. And so we're going into a new time, at least in the United States and developed worlds, and I can only imagine it's going to have a more negative effect on underdeveloped worlds. I don't know. Places that don't have running water, for example. I imagine that it's probably going to be worse for them because in general, when things happen, they get the worst of it. That's sort of what I see. So I'm worried first and foremost about my job, my employment, my monetary income. I think that we're going to go through in the next 10 years. The 20s are going to be insane. Okay, the 2020s are going to be insane. It's going to be historical. Nostradamus is coming out. Watch out. It's going to be a historical time that people look back on. They're going to give it a name. The 1920s were the Roaring 20s. I don't know what they're going to call these 20s, but we're probably going to have trucker riots. We're going to have a lot of poverty. The unemployment rate is going to go through the roof. But what's the interesting thing is what's going to be happening during all that terrible shit is that the whole country is going to be way more efficient. And the cost to do things is going to go way down. But the price to do things is probably going to stay the same. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but what a lot of food companies will do, packaged food companies, say you buy a pint of ice cream. The container will always be the same size. And every once in a while, they'll just put a little bit less ice cream in it. Just a little bit less ice cream in it. Because they're pumping out millions and millions of pints of ice cream, because that stuff is delicious because it has sugar in it, adoy, then they get to make more money. And so my prediction is that's what's going to happen with all this automation. This automation is going to cut the cost of so many things. But the companies, they don't even have to raise their prices. They can keep them the same, and they're going to make more and more and more and more money, because that's the system that we're currently existing in. And I don't think socialism has been tried. Go read your histories. Go study the histories of socialist countries and what has occurred in them. Same thing with communism and things like that. I don't think the idea of this like utopian pureness of optimizing for a single thing is going to work. I think that the system is going to be probably very complex. A system that would solve this problem or optimize in such a way that all this abundance is redistributed. Ooh, trigger warning. To the people. By the way, that's what governments do. They monopolize violence so that we're not doing honor killings and having cycles of revenge on each other. Great. And they're redistributing wealth. That's what taxes are. That's what taxes are, okay? They take a bunch of money from people and then they redistribute the money into different areas, okay? Wealth gets redistributed by governments so that people who are unlucky can get sort of leveled out in their unluckiness, you know? And so universal basic income is the primary idea. It's the first idea. I'm not mega confident that it's going to be the solution to the problem. But at the moment, that's the only solution people are bringing up that I'm hearing. If you all have solutions for this fourth industrial revolution, I'd love to hear them. Love to talk about it. But personally, again, I need to protect, first of all, myself. I need to make sure that I'm in good physical and mental condition so that when the shit hits the fan, I'm prepared psychologically, mentally, physically, and I can protect myself. 2, I want to be in a financially strong enough position where if some of my family or close friends are caught up into this turbulent period where we're transitioning from a world of scarcity to a world of abundance, and a lot of people are going to suffer, you know, at the bottom of the food chain, I want to be able to protect them. I want to be able to take care of them. And so that's really important to me. And so I'm doing that. But aside from that, and voting for people who care about this problem, and are putting it in the front, right? Like, aside from that, there's not too much I can do. But I think that if everyone were focused on that, then we would, through the representative republic system, we would find solutions to the problems. I think we need to try some shit. I think ideally, one of the things that I'd like to see in government is more science, more iterative things where it's like, hey, we don't know if this is going to work. This is an idea. We're going to try it. We're going to gather metrics and evidence of the result of the experiment, and then we're going to reassess, and we're going to communicate that well with the people of the country so that they know these are the things that occurred. This is what we tried. The effects on these statistics that we're monitoring, it's like life expectancy, suicide, drug overdose. You know, we want those things to go up or down respectively. I think that would be, to me, the scientific method is a better process for solving problems than trying to imagine a perfect solution and then just putting it in and then never going back on it and never looking at, oh, did it really work out? I don't know, but it's in there now. It's in. Once it's in, it's in. You know, I think that small iterative changes over and over and over and over and over again, I think is a safe, reasonable way to improve how things work. That said, this automation thing may require some some not so small changes in the way that we think about things and what we do to solve them. So that's probably a problem I'd like to solve. I'd love it to solve it personally, but I won't be able to. And so I'm more looking at that as a likely reality that I'm going to personally be prepared for and raise my status as much as I can to the point where I can, first of all, at a bare minimum, not be the person that other people have to support, and to support and protect and take care of as many of my family and close friends as possible. I think that the people who are lucky, who have jobs that don't get automated in the early stages of this, have a responsibility to do that so that they can protect and help the people that are unlucky through no fault of their own. Radiologists are going to start losing their jobs, you know. I think that's it. Right. So automation, and obviously climate change. Climate change is real. The oceans are a really big part of that. It's not just the air, it's the oceans too. And it's very complex and difficult, and it's a coordination problem. We need to all be getting together on this. We need to first accept that this is a problem that's important we need to address. We all need to come together on that, so we're all on the same page. And we need to start making changes. We need to start trying to do stuff. We need to develop technology that pulls carbon out of the air. That's happening. We want more funding for that type of stuff. We want more sources of renewable energy, less dependence on fossil fuels, etc. It's all stuff you know, right? You know this stuff. You've probably heard this over and over and over again, right? So yeah, that's probably a big one. And then a little bit further out, artificial general intelligence. That's going to be fun or terrible. It's going to be incredible or awful. Artificial general intelligence, as soon as it's created by whoever creates it, will like incrementally improve itself to outstrip the cognitive capability of the combination of all coordinated humans very, very quickly, in my opinion. When that happens, I don't know what the result is going to be, but I have accepted at this point that we will be 100% out of the driver's seat. And whatever happens is going to happen. If it ends up being Skynet and eliminate the humans because they're destroying themselves, then damn. I'm going to do what I can to stay alive and to keep my family, my friends alive, to do good. But that would suck. Hopefully, you know, the artificial general intelligence comes online, and because it's so intelligent, it is equally wise and recognizes, or hopefully the mass knowledge of all people is the recognition that violence is not the solution, and that the artificial general intelligence and whatever mechanisms it employs will not be violent, and will allow us to exist as free, independent humans. That's what I hope happens. But I don't think that's addressable. I don't know if it's going to be good or bad, but I do think it's going to be completely outside of our control. But that's a little while. That's probably a little further out, I think, than the climate change issue and the automation issue. I think automation issue is going to come. Well, it's coming right now, right? Next year, I read an article. McDonald's will not have cashiers anymore. MGM does not have, or I think maybe in August. I think in August they will not have bartenders anymore. The self-driving cars and self-driving trucks, you know, that's maybe like, that'll take like 5 to 10 years to really kick in. But there is going to be a lot of software-based solutions that just, blue collar jobs, white collar jobs, doesn't matter. Like if it's repetitive, it can be automated, and that's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be a crazy time. Hopefully we can survive through it, and Hopefully there are enough people that get into positions of power that have the ability to look at these problems in a real way and solve them, or at least, you know, protect the people who are less fortunate and end up in a shitty situation as a result of all this automation. But yeah, thank you so much. That was Zodiath. Should be able to remember these things. Finally, we have a comment from the Happy Librarian. Go read a book, guys. Go read a book. And then when you're done that book, read another book. It's great. You might think that listening to things is more efficient. But for most people, and with a little bit of practice, you can read things and learn by reading much faster than you can by watching things, which I realize is kind of a conflict of interest because you're watching things right now. I'm telling you, you'd be much, much, much more better served to read books about the things that I'm talking about than listening to me talking about them. That said, I am very glad that you are here listening to me talking about them because I like to do it, and I really appreciate everyone sharing their ideas, and it's very nice. It's a very nice thing. The Happy Librarian says, she doesn't say read a book. Ooh, do you see that? I assumed female. I was looking at the avatar, and that was my guess. It's like a creature with long hair, I think. I can't even tell from here. It's too small. In any case, whoa. See how, like, I'm always keeping track of that. Always keeping track of that. Always worried about that. It's not a useful use of mental bandwidth. It really isn't. You and I almost certainly differ on a great number of issues. Cool. As example, I'm not fond of Joe Rogan or Jordan Peterson. But anyone who will speak out against the demonization of white people is all right in my book. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think that the pendulum swings back and forth, and our goal should not be to push it to one side or the other, but to get it to the middle. We don't know where the middle is. The middle's not always at 50%. We need to figure out where the middle is. That's kind of a Buddhist thing, but anyway. And this kind of jumped in the category of like Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson. It's sort of like Joe Rogan has shit to say that I disagree with, and he brings on guests I disagree with, and so does Jordan Peterson. But they also say things that make sense to me and that I do agree with. And so the Happy Librarian's not saying this. I'm not trying to represent their opinion, but just let the ideas stand on their own. If they stand their own, good. And if they don't, then they don't. Then they need to be better supported by evidence, or there needs to be more argumentation behind them, more logic. But that's it. Yeah, so we didn't have a topic today. We just had a lot of really interesting comments that were very thought out, and thank you for all those. I don't have too much of a plan for this show as far as how it's going to be structured or what we're going to do with it. I'm just kind of going with the flow at the moment. So this was fun. Definitely let me know, like, all right, cool. Like, I like that you read the comments, but maybe don't read every comment. Maybe read one that's your favorite, or, you know, maybe cut this up into, you know, give me your suggestions for the content, what you think about it, give me your feedback. Thank you all for hanging out with me and sharing your ideas, and that's it. Stay hydrated. See you next time.